Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The optimistic AngloGold Ashanti CEO Mark Cutifani firmly believes that mining is the most important industrial activity in the world, while having one of the smallest environmental impacts across the globe. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Cutifani says the world would need to dedicate twice as much of the amount of land to agricultural use if it were not for mining's activities. Can you explain what he's saying?
You know, just the phosphate mining, just the potash mining, this adds to the yield of your crop, the fertilizer that you create, getting more and more sophisticated. So from the same land, you're getting more and more protein, more and more food. And this is all as a result of mining activities. And mining itself is making a huge contribution to the gross domestic product of the world, if you can take his calculations into account, which is 45% plus. So, you know, the direct contribution from mining is about 11.5% of gross world product. So that is the actual products that are mined and sold. But then if you look at the services that are related directly to mining, it adds about another 21 to 23%. And thereafter, if you look at all the linkages, the agricultural linkages and the transport linkages, it moves to 45% plus. Now that is massive. And at the same time, it's not really occupying more than 1% of the land. So the footprint is small. Much of it is underground, I suppose. Well, a lot of it is underground as well, so you don't actually see it. And so he's trying to point out that the world just cannot do without mining. And so miners have got to adopt best practice, and people have got to acknowledge that this has just got to happen.
Yes. Now, he also hopes for mining to become known as a development industry rather than an extractive industry. Can you explain that?
You know, I think he's looking at his operation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. He's looking at the mine he's building, Mongwalu, and he's looking how much expenditure is going on really non-mining activity. So, you know, nearly half of what his capital is in building that mine in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is going on spatial linkages, infrastructure. This will be linkages that will enable the local farmers to get their produce to market. Possibly they've never done it before. And also, you know, giving them an opportunity to grow more than their actual needs. So he's saying that it is developmental. And I've been out to one of those Democratic Republic operations. It was a copper operation, and I was surprised at the number of people it draws, because as soon as the mine arrives, people start moving almost like a new urban activity, because they're clinics, you see, and they're getting healthcare, there's education. But one of the biggest things was the road networks that these provided. I think in the part that I was in, before the mines arrived, it took about 10 days to get to market in Lubumbashi. With the roads, it was, a day, and the people could get their produce to market. So it changes the whole economics of an area. So he's saying, no, look, we don't just extract, we also develop. So call us the developmental industry.
Now, he's also expressed faith in South Africa's mining charter, but still feels as if more debate needs to take place. What are his three main concerns?
Yeah, his concerns are around, the security of tenure, a level playing field when it comes to actually the activity of the state mining company, and also the infrastructure that the state has to provide. It needs to be adequate. But he's a big believer in this mining charter, because he said that he's been on all the continents of Earth. He's mined, he's had responsibilities there. Nowhere in the world has anyone managed to navigate a broad document that has got the backing of government, business and labour. He says it doesn't exist. So he says we've got a priceless document here. What you must do is get behind it, resource it, make sure that it delivers that growth that it's saying it will deliver, and then make sure it delivers the transformation. So the whole document is based around growth and transformation. The social side of it is saying, hey, we've got to do better for the people. And the business side is saying, yes, we can, but let us grow. So give us the policies that let us grow, and they've defined that growth as 30% over 5 to 10 years. Then we will give you the transformation. We will make sure people are skilled up. We will make sure that the equities around mining is created, and we'll normalise South African mining from a racial point of view. So I think it's quite a mature document now, that mining charter. It was the first industry to come up with a charter, and every single component has signed a document related to how the industry is going to grow and how it's going to transform. He's saying this is a very valuable document. Now let's get behind it and move, because this is the thing that can take us to the number one in the world. There's no one else in the world that's got this. They're all struggling with this, and we've got the formula. Let's make sure that we regard it properly and do something with it.
And I suppose that then brings us to the question of nationalisation, which struggle veteran Andrew Mlungeni is vehemently against.
Yeah, it was quite fantastic, to hear the reports of Andrew Mlungeni's performance at the ANC's National Policy Conference. In his economic commission, he walked to the front of the room and actually gave a forceful speech about, nationalisation is just a non-starter. It destroys economies. It doesn't build any economies. And he's looking at the Soviet Union, how it's disappeared. I mean, this was very, very firm nationalisation. Those Eastern European countries, a lot of them don't exist anymore. They were depending on nationalisation for their existence. Nationalisation let them down badly. So it's an economic destroyer, not an economic builder. And it was great that a veteran, like Andrew Mlungeni, who spent so many years on Robben Island and so close to Nelson Mandela, has done so much for the political advancement of our country and upliftment of all the people. He's just telling them outright, look, forget about nationalisation. He's telling these young people, forget about it. It's going to destroy you. It's not going to help you. And I think that was a very important contribution that he made, because it set an important tone at the ANC National Policy Conference, which is now past, which seemed to drag on for so long, and which I think has tended to galvanize a lot of minds. Behind the scenes, there's a lot more consensus and cohesion in the mining industry particularly, which is seen as the key industry to develop this economy. You can see the people saying, look now, there's an opportunity here. We are on the cusp of a very important breakthrough. If we get our dialogue right, if we put the people and the structures that we have into good position, we can really create that social dividend that everybody's looking for. Everybody wants a good social dividend out of mining. The whole world wants that. And we are in a position now, because of the extent of our dialogue, to actually deliver that. So it'll be very good for South Africa, and could possibly put it back into the number one position, even though it looks like very negative when you hear all the reports. That spurs on behind the scenes activity, which actually then has the opposite reaction of moving one in a very positive direction.
What do you think the chances are that the youth will listen to what he has to say?
Well, I think, the way the ANC is structured, this is not a general election. So you've got the people who are in charge. You could see the way they handled that ANC National Policy Conference. They didn't allow any nonsense. This was on the agenda. This is what we discussed. If you want to shout out in the streets, that's a different story. If you want to go into the ballot box at some stage, it's a different story. But don't try and create a ballot box out of the ANC National Policy Conference, because it's not a voting situation, really, a general voting situation. It's policy formulation in preparation for Mangaung. And I think we'll probably see the same stricture at Mangaung, where they say, look, we've been elected to run this place. We're going to run it. So, and if you want to vote us out during the next election, well, that's your right. But until that happens, this is what we're going to do. And I think that they showed quite a lot of firmness. Hopefully that follows through at Mangaung, and we then have no more delays, because we can see how long the reform to the mining legislation is taking. It's dragging on. And it's all waiting for Mangaung. And, one would just like to get Mangaung behind us so that we can put the foot on the accelerator and go for that very important G word, growth, economic growth. Around that, we can then if you've got this mining growth, then you've got general growth in your economy. And then you can perhaps harness that into manufacturing, and you build up that manufacturing in parallel. And at the same time, people have got to think very carefully now that we don't suffer from Dutch disease. Because every strong resources country, every strong mining country suffers from Dutch disease. So they think of a sovereign fund that we can put these dividends into, so that they can benefit future generations and help the country in a way that doesn't damage its competitiveness. Because if you're too strong on the mining front, your currency gets too strong, and that damages your manufacturing. So it's got to be a careful balance. But you can see that with the 70-page document from Anglo American, they're saying, look, there's a lot of very laudatory goals in the state intervention in the mining sector document, the Sims document, but you're going about it the wrong way. If you go about it the right way, in other words, if you set these proper policies in place, we will commit to working with you. We will throw some leadership in. We will give you a platinum valley. We will give you special beneficiation hubs. We will make sure we can do something with iron ore in Limpopo. But give us that growth. Because if you don't give us the growth, it actually makes us so much less competitive that we'll start to shrink. Never mind employ more people and have linkages and forward linkages, backward linkages and spatial linkages. We will be delivering far less and no social dividend at all. We'll be paying less and less taxes. So growth is the big thing. Never mind the N word, we need the G word.
Well, thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.